The demand the sky over Velara burned red at dusk. The twin suns sank low behind jagged cliffs, and the market square filled with shadows. Stalls closed, lights dimmed, and whispers spread faster than the night wind. Everyone had heard the message. Silver warship, larger than any mountain, had arrived in orbit that morning. It was the flag vessel of the Care Dominion, an empire that ruled half the known galaxy. For centuries they had conquered, enslaved, and demanded tribute from every new world they discovered. Now it was Velara's turn. The message broadcast into every mind by the Dominion's psionic translators was simple: bow or be broken, kneel or be burned. The Dominion claims your world. The aliens of Velara trembled. They were tall, thin beings with pale, glass-like skin and wide, violet eyes. Their world had never known war. They traded crystals, sang to the wind, and built towers of light. They had no weapons, no armies, no defense. Most were ready to submit, but one voice in the crowd was different. Elias Kane leaned against a rusted column at the edge of the square. He was human-scarred, broad-shouldered, and out of place among the delicate people of this world. He had come years ago. After leaving the Terran Navy, searching for quiet, he had found peace here. The Velari had welcomed him, even though his rough hands and blunt speech made him strange to them. He had lived as a mechanic, fixing their machines, teaching them how to build stronger engines. But tonight he saw the fear in their eyes, and he knew submission would not save them. "They won't stop," Elias said aloud. His voice was rough, deep, carrying through the silence. "If you kneel, you'll never stand again. The Dominion doesn't just take your tribute. They take your children, your future, your soul." Gasps rippled through the crowd. The Velari were not used to such words. One of them, a young woman named Lyara, stepped forward. Her violet eyes shone with anger and fear. She was the daughter of the council elder, and Elias had seen her often in the market, trading crystals. With a bright laugh. Tonight her voice trembled, but her will was steel. "What choice do we have?" she asked him. "They are power. We are nothing." Elias met her eyes. "You have me?" The crowd murmured. A single human against an empire? Madness. But Elias wasn't smiling. His jaw was set, his scars hard in the fading light. He remembered Earth's wars, remembered standing in trenches of mud on distant colonies, remembered the fire of ships burning in orbit. He had fought empires before. He knew their weaknesses, and he knew one truth: if you fight, you might die. If you kneel, you're already dead. Overhead, the Dominion's warship eclipsed the stars, a shadow of doom. The people stared upward, broken by the sight. Lyara trembled, torn between despair and the faint spark in the human's eyes. "What can one man do?" She whispered. Elias's voice was quiet, but it carried more than they expect. The square fell silent. The night wind hissed through the stalls. Then the Dominion's second message came, booming across the sky. "At dawn, you will gather and kneel. Refuse, and your cities burn." The crowd scattered, fleeing to their homes. Lyara stayed, her eyes fixed on Elias. And Elias Kane stood alone in the square, staring up at the warship, his fists clenched. He had left war behind. But war had come for him, and humanity had never been the kind to kneel. Sparks in the dark night fell heavy over Velara. The twin suns had vanished, leaving the crystal towers glowing faintly with their own inner light. The streets were hushed, the people hiding behind shuttered doors. Fear was thick, pressing down on every heart. But Elias Kane was awake. He sat in the workshop on the edge of the market square, the one the Velari had given him years ago. It was a cluttered place, full of tools they didn't understand, machines he had half built, scraps of metal salvaged from fallen trade ships. The air smelled of oil and dust. Outside, the city trembled under the shadow of the Dominion ship. Inside, Elias's hands moved steadily. As though nothing had changed, he was building. A small device lay open before him, a power coil from a broken engine. He rewired it, twisted it, and set a crystal core into its heart. When it hummed to life, with a faint blue glow, Elias leaned back and exhaled. It was crude, unstable, but it would release an energy burst strong enough to disable an armored suit. It was a start. The door creaked. Elias didn't look up. You shouldn't be here, Lyra. The young Velari woman stepped inside, pulling, her shawl tight around her shoulders. Her violet eyes glowed faintly in the workshop light. She looked smaller than she had in the square, her confidence shaken. My father says we must obey, she said softly. That the Dominion's wrath will burn us all if we resist. He says you are dangerous, Elias Kane, that you will bring death on us. Elias tightened a bolt and muttered, He's right about one thing. Death is coming whether you bow or not. Lyra's throat worked. She wanted to argue, but the images of the Dominion warship filled her mind. Towers of metal, weapons that could shatter mountains. They were gods compared to her people. How could a single human stand against that? Still, something in Elias's eyes unnerved her. He was not like her people. He had seen war, and he did not flinch from it. Why fight, she whispered. Why not kneel, survive, and wait for better days? Elias finally looked up. His eyes were hard, storm gray. Because better days never come once you kneel. I've seen worlds bow. The Dominion drains them until nothing's left. Food, ore, people turned into slaves. Your children will grow up in chains. Is that survival? Lyra's breath caught. The word slave struck deep. Her people knew stories, faint whispers of far-off worlds stripped of freedom. But stories had always been distant. Now they were here. She looked at the device on his bench. What is that? A weapon, Elias said simply. Her kind did not even have a word for such things. Weapons were myths. Lyra trembled, torn between fear and the strange fire growing inside her. You mean to fight them alone? Elias shook his head. Not alone. With whoever has the courage to stand. She hesitated. Then, with a trembling voice, she said, Teach me. Elias studied her. She was young, untested, her hands soft from trade and craft. But her eyes, yes, there was steel there now, under the fear. He nodded once, then watched closely. They worked through the night. Elias showed her how to strip wires, twist coils, set crystals into casings. He explained energy flows, how unstable charges could be turned into bursts of power. Lyra's hands shook at first, but soon steadied. She was quick, sharp, her mind catching details fast. At one point, she asked softly, On your world, did you build weapons like this often? Elias paused. For a moment, his face was shadowed, distant. Too often. Enough that I swore I'd never do it again. Then why now? He looked at her, and his voice was low. Because I couldn't live with myself if I watched you all kneel. Not when. I know we can fight. Her heart thudded. She realized then that Elias Kane was not simply building weapons. He was building hope. Asterisk at dawn, the Dominion came. A ship descended from the sky, sleek and black, cutting the clouds like a blade. It landed in the square, its thrusters cracking the stone. The people gathered, dragged by fear and duty. Elias and Lyra stood among them. Hidden beneath Elias's cloak was the small device they had built. The ship's ramp hissed open. From it stepped 3 figures in black armor, towering over the crowd, Dominion enforcers. Their helmets were smooth, faceless, glowing with crimson light. Energy rifles hung at their sides. The air around them pulsed with menace. One raised a hand. His voice, amplified and cold, rolled over the square. "Kneel." The Velari hesitated. Then, slowly, the crowd began to sink. One by one, knees touched. Stone, faces bowed. The enforcers watched, silent, waiting. But Elias did not kneel. He stood tall, arms crossed, eyes burning. Liara trembled beside him, but she stayed standing too. The enforcers turned, their helmets locking onto the two figures. "Who defied the command? You will kneel," the lead enforcer repeated. "No," Elias said. His voice was calm, hard as iron. "Not today, not ever." Gasps rippled through the crowd. Lyra's father clutched his chest in horror. The enforcers raised their rifles. Lyra's breath caught. Was this madness? Was this the end already? Elias moved, swift, precise. He pulled the device from beneath his cloak and hurled it at the lead enforcer's feet. The coil flared, then detonated with a thunderclap. A burst of blue energy knocked the armored giant sprawling, sparks dancing over. His body. The crowd screamed. Chaos erupted. The other two enforcers fired, crimson bolts slicing the air. Elias grabbed Liara and dove behind a market stall, shards of crystal shattering around them. He rolled, yanked out another device from his belt, and lobbed it at the second enforcer. Another burst of energy. The giant staggered, armor crackling. The third enforcer advanced, rifle blazing. Elias dragged Liara to cover, returning fire with a stolen Dominion pistol. His aim was steady, each shot forcing the armored monster back. For the first time, the Velari saw it. The mighty Dominion pushed, hurt, resisted, and something in there. Hearts shifted. The battle was short, brutal. Elias's crude devices disabled two enforcers. The third retreated, wounded, dragging his comrades back onto their ship. With a roar of engines, the vessel blasted skyward, vanishing into the clouds. The square was silent. Smoke drifted over the shattered stones. The people stared at Elias, stunned, their eyes wide with terror and awe. Liara rose beside him, trembling, her chest heaving. She looked at her people and shouted, her voice breaking, but fierce. "You saw it. They can be fought. They can be hurt." The crowd murmured, voices rising in disbelief. Was it possible? Could they resist gods? Elias turned, his gaze sweeping over them. "You don't have to kneel. Not if you're willing to fight." For a long moment, silence hung heavy. Then, one by one, heads lifted, eyes met his, and sparks of courage flickered to life. The Dominion had demanded submission. Instead, they had given birth to rebellion. The first strike. The Dominion did not wait long. By the second night after the square, the sky was alive with fire. Black dropships roared down from orbit, their hulls glowing with heat as they cut through the atmosphere. The ground shook as they landed in the plains beyond the city. Columns of armored soldiers spilled out, marching in perfect formation, rifles at the ready. Their crimson visors glared like burning eyes in the dark. The Care Dominion did not forget defiance. They crushed it. Elias Kane watched from the cliffs. Above, the cold wind biting his scarred face. Beside him, Liara crouched low, clutching a crystal blade she barely knew how to use. Her violet eyes widened as she saw the Dominion's army spread across the land. "There are so many," she whispered, voice breaking. We can't fight that." Elias's jaw tightened. "Not head on, not yet." Below, the Dominion. Soldiers set up command beacons and energy barriers. Their machines crawled across the plain, towering walkers with glowing cannons. It looked unstoppable, but Elias's eyes narrowed. He wasn't seeing monsters. He was seeing weaknesses, choke points, blind angles, Overconfidence. They think this will be easy, he muttered. We'll show them different. The Vaelari were not warriors, but under Elias's command they were learning fast. Hidden in caves and ruins, small groups worked feverishly. Elias had shown them how to turn their luminous crystals into energy bombs. Others carved pits into the ground, laying traps with sharpened shards. Hunters of the forest strung nets, strong as steel, across ravines. For every hour the Dominion advanced. Elias was turning the land itself into a weapon. Lyra helped him spread the knowledge. She moved among her people, teaching them what he taught her. Her voice, once timid, now carried steel. She showed children how to carry supplies, old men how to set traps, young traders how to throw a crystal charge. The people listened. For the first time in their history, the Vaelari prepared for war. 3 days later, the Dominion marched on the city. Their commander, a massive figure in black armor edged with silver, stood at the head. His voice thundered across the land, amplified. By Dominion tech, Vaelara, you are warned. Kneel or burn. The army roared in unison, weapons raised, but the city did not kneel. The first trap was sprung with a crack like thunder. The cliffs above the Dominion line exploded. Boulders loosened by hidden charges crashed down onto the armored ranks. Dozens were crushed, formations shattered. As confusion spread, nets dropped from above, tangling soldiers, dragging them screaming into pits of jagged crystal. From the Yazian ruins, hidden fighters hurled crystal bombs. Blue-white bursts tore through the black armor, sending soldiers sprawling. The Vaelari struck with desperation, but also with human precision. Elias's planning had turned fear into fury. Then Elias himself charged. Rifle in one hand, blade in the other, he moved like a storm through the Dominion ranks. Every shot was placed, every strike decisive. He fought not for glory, but for survival. Behind him, Lyra fought too, slashing with her crystal blade, defiant, fearless. Her people saw her and followed. For the first time in living memory, the Vaelari roared in battle, but the Dominion did not break easily. Asterisk, their commander, strode into the fray, towering above all, his silver-edged armor gleaming. He lifted a heavy spear, crackling with red energy, and cut down 3 Vaelari in a single sweep. His voice boomed, cold and merciless. You think yourselves warriors? You are cattle. And cattle always kneel. Elias turned toward him, breath ragged, blood on his arm. He spat into the dirt. Come and make me. The commander surged forward. Their clash was brutal steel against crystal, human grit against alien strength. The commander's spear slashed with deadly arcs, but Elias dodged, countered, drove his blade into weak points. Sparks flew. The commander staggered, then slammed a fist into Elias's chest, sending him sprawling into the dirt. Lyra screamed, rushing toward him, but soldiers closed in around her. Elias forced himself to rise, chest burning. He lifted his rifle and fired again and again, shots striking the commander's armor. The giant roared in fury, lifting his spear high for a killing blow, and that's when it happened. The sky itself split open. A beam of fire crashed down from orbit, obliterating half the battlefield. The ground shook, towers of flame rising, as hundreds of Vaelari and Dominion soldiers alike were vaporized. The shockwave threw Elias to the ground. Silence fell, broken only by screams. The Dominion ship in orbit had opened fire. Lyra crawled toward Elias, blood streaking her face. They'll destroy us all, she whispered. Even their own soldiers, they don't care. Elias pushed himself up, coughing, eyes blazing with fury. He looked at the burning plain, the shattered army, the horror raining from the sky. He knew the truth. The Dominion would not stop until Vaelara was ash and silence. He turned to Lyra. voice low but unyielding. Then we take the fight to them. Her eyes widened. To the ship? That's impossible. It's the only way. Above, the warship blotted out the stars, its cannons glowing with the fire of annihilation. And Elias Kane, scarred soldier of Earth, swore then and there he would bring that monster down, even if it cost him everything. Asterisk. Fire in the sky, the Dominion warship hung in the heavens like a black sun. Its cannons pulsed, streaks of red fire raining down onto the plains. Forests burned, crystal towers shattered, and the air itself trembled with the violence. The Velari had never seen such destruction. They screamed and fled, their luminous skin glowing faint in the smoke. Whole families were swallowed in fire. The ground split open, swallowing ancient bridges and sacred stones. And still, the warship burned. Elias Kane dragged himself through the wreckage of the ambush site, his ribs aching from the commander's blow. Around him, the battlefield was Chaos Dominion soldiers retreating. Velari scattered, fire consuming everything. Liara stumbled to his side, coughing on the smoke. Her violet eyes streamed with tears. They'll wipe out the city, she choked. My people, my family. Elias caught her shoulders, forcing her to look at him. His face was hard, but his voice was steady. Listen to me. They want fear. They want surrender. If you give them that, it's over. But if you stand, if you keep fighting, then they bleed. Lyra's hands clenched into fists. She thought of her father, her mother, her younger brother, waiting in the tower of their home. The Dominion's fire was crawling toward the city already. We can't stop the sky, she whispered. Elias's eyes narrowed. He followed the lines of the bombardment, reading its rhythm. He had seen this before on colony worlds, on battlefields across the stars. And he knew something. They're not firing at full strength, he muttered. If they did, the city would already be glass. They're holding back. Why? Liara asked. Because they want submission, not extinction, Elias growled. They want you alive to serve? That's their weakness. They raced back toward the city. The streets were madness, Velari fleeing in every direction, mothers clutching children. Elders carried on makeshift stretchers. Crystal towers cracked and collapsed under the shockwaves. Asterisk, the council was in uproar in the central hall, voices shouting, panic thick. Leora's father stood among them, his pale skin bruised, his once proud voice hoarse. You see now? He cried, this is hopeless. We must kneel, beg for mercy, offer them what they want, before we are all ash. Some nodded desperately. Others wailed in grief. Elias strode into the hall like a storm, his voice cutting through the clamor. Mercy? You think they'll give mercy? He slammed a bloodied hand against the crystal table, leaving a streak of red. They don't want your lives. They want your chains. Asterisk. Lyra's father rounded on him, fury in his eyes. You are not of us. You bring this war here. You make us suffer for your pride. Elias met his gaze, unflinching. I've fought them before. I know what comes next. You kneel. They take your children. They take your songs, your freedom, your very name. Better to burn than to bow. The hall fell silent. His words cut deep, harsher than any flame. Liara stepped forward, her voice trembling but strong. He is right. You saw them retreat today. You saw them bleed. We can fight. We must fight. Her father's face twisted in pain. He looked at her as though she were already lost. Daughter, this path will kill you. Lyra's jaw set. Then let me die standing, not kneeling. That night, the city prepared. Asterisk. Elias moved among them, showing how to turn crystal towers into lightning rods, focusing energy into lances that could strike upward. The Velari artisans worked feverishly, their slender hands guided by his blunt, scarred ones. Hunters sharpened shards into spears. Children carried supplies. The city of song became a city of war. And as the twin moons rose, the Dominion descended. Dropships screened down, disgorging waves of armored soldiers. The city lit up in defiance, crystal towers flaring, beams of blue, lightning lancing into the night sky. One dropship exploded, spiraling down in fire. Cheers erupted from the defenders, a sound strange and raw in their throats. The battle for Velara had begun. Elias fought in the streets, moving from barricade to barricade. His rifle cracked, his blade flashed, his voice barked orders that kept the defenders alive. Every time a Velari faltered, he was there, steady as stone. Liara fought too, her crystal blades slashing arcs of light. She led her people with fearless fury, her violet eyes blazing in the fire. To see her fight was to see hope itself, fragile yet unyielding. The Dominion pressed hard. Their soldiers moved like machines, their weapons cutting down defenders in droves. But the Velari would not break. For every tower that fell, another trap was sprung. For every soldier slain, another fighter rose. The city bled, but it lived. Came the tragedy. A new barrage from orbit struck the central district. Towers of crystal shattered, raining shards like knives. Elias and Liara rushed through the smoke, searching, hearts pounding. And there, in the rubble of the council hall, they found Lyra's family. Her father, crushed beneath fallen stone, his violet eyes dim. Her mother, limp and broken beside him. Her younger brother, no more than 12 seasons, lying still with dust in his hair. Liara fell to her knees, a scream tearing from her throat. She clawed at the rubble with bloodied hands, sobbing, her voice breaking. No, please, no. Elias knelt beside her, his chest tight. He had seen this too many times before, families broken by war, innocence buried under ash. But seeing Lyra's pain struck him deeper than any wound. She turned to him, tears burning down her face. Her voice was raw, broken, but filled with fire. They will pay, I swear it. They will pay for this. Elias placed a hand on her shoulder, steady and strong. His own eyes burned with grief, but his voice was iron. Then we make them pay. Not with words, with action. Lyra's grief hardened into fury. She rose from the rubble, her blade trembling in her grip. Tell me how. The battle raged through the night. The city held, though half in ruins. By dawn, the Dominion withdrew, their dropships rising back into the sky. They had expected easy submission. Instead, they had met defiance and lost soldiers they could not replace. But victory felt hollow. Smoke curled over the broken towers. Families wept among the ruins. And Liara, once a daughter of peace, now stood with her blade in hand, eyes hard with vengeance. She was no longer just a voice of hope. She was a weapon forged in fire. Elias stood on the walls at sunrise, watching the warship above. His body ached, his wounds burned, but his mind was sharp. He had seen the Dominion's weakness in the battle, their reliance on overwhelming firepower, their arrogance in underestimating resistance. But he had also glimpsed something stranger. When the warship's cannons fired, he had felt a pressure, like invisible hands pressing against his skull. He had felt that once before. During the Terran campaigns, PSIONICS. The Dominion was using enslaved minds to power their weapons. Minds that could be broken or freed. His path was clear now. He turned to Liara, who stood beside him, her face pale with grief, but her stance unbending. If we want to end this, we need to get inside that ship. She met his gaze, and the first time her lips curled in something between a smile and a snarl. Then tell me how. Above them, the warship loomed, its shadow stretching across the world. The fire in the sky had forged not submission, but resolve. The enemy revealed. Smoke of battle still clung to Velara's towers. The scent of burning crystal and scorched flesh hung heavy in the air. The people were silent, walking among ruins, carrying the wounded, burying the dead. For the first time, the Velari knew war. Elias Kane stood on the shattered wall of the council hall, looking out at the sky. The Dominion warship still loomed above, its silhouette black against the pale dawn. Its cannons were silent now, but their threat lingered. He felt it again, the faint, invisible pressure in his mind. A weight, like fingers pressing against his thoughts. He muttered under his breath, "Psionics, has to be." Liara stood beside him, her hands cut and bloodied from digging her family's bodies from the rubble. Her eyes were hollow, her voice flat. "What do you mean?" Elias turned to her. "That ship, its weapons, its power. It's not just machines. They're drawing energy from living minds, slaves." Lyra's face tightened. Slaves? Psionics, people with mental power. The Dominion hunts them, chains them, plugs them into their ships. I've seen it before. Whole fleets powered by the suffering of the conquered. His jaw clenched. That's how they hold half the galaxy. Not just with fire, but with stolen souls. Liara's violet eyes widened with horror. Her people were singers, artists. The thought of such cruelty was beyond imagining. And those prisoners, they're alive inside that ship? Elias nodded grimly. Barely, but yes. Her fists trembled. Then we free them. The plan was madness. To infiltrate a Dominion warship, the largest vessel in orbit, was suicide. But Elias knew it was their only chance. Destroying the ship outright was impossible with the tools they had. But if they could cripple it from within, if they could free the psionics, it would not only save Velara, it would wound the Dominion in ways they could not recover from. But first, they needed a way in days past intense preparation. Elias and Liara gathered those willing to follow. Hunters, artisans, traders, they became fighters, saboteurs, spies. Elias trained them ruthlessly, teaching them how to move unseen, how to strike fast and vanish. He turned farmers into guerrillas, miners into sappers. Liara became his second. Her grief sharpened into resolve. She learned quickly, her voice carrying orders with a steadiness that surprised even Elias. She was no longer just her father's daughter. She was a leader. But not everyone stood with them. In the hidden camp beneath the cliffs, voices of dissent grew. "This is folly," one elder hissed. His translucent skin gleamed pale in the firelight. "The Dominion will crush us no matter. What tricks you teach. To resist is to doom us all." Others muttered agreement. Fear was a poison spreading fast. Elias rose, his presence heavy as stone. "You've already seen what kneeling brings. Fire, death, chains. You think surrender will save you? It won't. It'll only make your deaths slower." But the elder's eyes glared. "And what if you are wrong, human? What if your wars, your ways, only bring us to ruin? You are not one of us. You are the reason they came." The words cut. Elias said nothing. His jaw clenched, his eyes dark. It was Liara who stepped forward, her voice sharp. "Enough. Without him, we would already be in chains. Without him, I would be dead. My family is gone, but I stand. I will not kneel. If you want to kneel, then go crawl to the Dominion and beg. But know this, you will be remembered as cowards while the rest of us fight." Silence fell. Some lowered their eyes shamed. Others turned away, muttering. The seed of betrayal had been planted. That night, Elias worked alone in the workshop, shaping charges from crystal cores. His hands moved with the practiced precision of a soldier who had built too many bombs in his life, but his mind was elsewhere. Liara entered quietly, watching him. You don't sleep, she said. Sleep's a luxury. He muttered ... You've done this before. He paused, looking up at her. Too many times. Her eyes softened. She stepped closer, her voice quiet. And yet you fight again. 4. US for me. Elias looked away. He wasn't a man for speeches. But inside, he knew why. He had run from war once, tired of killing, tired of loss. But here, among people who had never known how to fight, he had found something worth defending again. Something pure, something fragile, and someone who gave him hope. The next day, scouts returned with news. The Dominion had landed a supply outpost in the northern canyon. It was guarded, but vulnerable. Inside were fuel cells and access codes, exactly what they needed for an infiltration. Elias saw opportunity. We take it. Fast, quiet, no mistakes. With those codes, we can breach the warship's hangars. Lyara nodded. Then we strike tonight. The raid began under cover of darkness. Elias led a dozen fighters through the canyon, their crystal blades glinting faintly in the starlight. The Dominion outpost was a cluster of black structures guarded by armored sentries. Elias's hand signals were sharp. 2 Velari crept forward, tossing crystal charges. The explosions ripped through the silence, sending the sentries sprawling. Elias surged forward, rifle blazing. His team followed, swift and ruthless. It was over in minutes. The outpost burned. Dominion soldiers lying broken in the dust. Elias ripped open a console, pulling free the glowing code modules. Victory. But as they withdrew, a scream tore through the night. One of the Velari fighters had been dragged back into the shadows, slain by his own people. Elias spun, rifle raised, just in time to see figures slipping away into the dark. Velari. Their faces were twisted with fear and hate. Traitors. Seed had sprouted. They returned to camp with blood on their hands and betrayal in their hearts. Lyara paced, fury in her eyes. They sold us out. Our own people. How could they? Elias's face was grim. Fear makes cowards of good men. And cowards do stupid things. But they'll tell the Dominion everything, she whispered. Elias nodded. Then we move faster, before the traitors can sell us out completely. He lifted the code modules, their glow reflecting in his hard eyes. We've got a way in now. It's time. Lyara looked at him, her jaw tight, her grief and rage burning. Together, then we strike at the heart. Above them, the warship loomed, silent and waiting. Inside, enslaved psionics suffered. And around them, the Dominion's shadow thickened. But Elias Kane had made his choice. No more running. No more hiding. War was coming to the gates of the Empire itself. Siege of the Gate. The Dominion had been humiliated twice. Their enforcers broken in the square, their soldiers rooted in the canyon. Their commander's pride was burned, their ships scarred with failure. Yet now they came with everything. The morning sky split open as dropships descended in swarms, blotting out the suns. Towering walkers strode across the plains, cannons glowing. Squadrons of fighters screamed overhead, their engines shrieking like predators. And above it all, the warship waited, silent, patient like a vulture watching the kill. Elias Kane stood at the gates of Velara, rifle in hand, his scars burning. In the dawn light, beside him, Lyara gripped her crystal blade, her violet eyes hard as stone. Behind them, the people of the city farmers, singers, artisans stood armed with crude weapons, makeshift bombs, sharpened shards. They were not an army, but they were all that stood between survival and chains. Elias's voice carried, steady, and iron. Listen to me. They think you're weak. They think you'll kneel. Prove them wrong. This is your home, your children, your freedom. You fight here, or you'll never be free again. A roar rose from the defenders. It was not the disciplined cry of soldiers, but the raw sound of desperation turned into courage. A Dominion marched. The first wave hit like a storm. Enforcers in black armor surged forward, rifles spitting crimson fire. Walkers stomped across, the plane shaking the earth. Fighters screamed overhead, unleashing strafing runs that tore through barricades. But the Velari held. Crystal towers flared, lancing bolts of energy into the sky, striking fighters from the air. Nets strung across. The streets snapped tight, trapping armored soldiers who were swarmed by defenders with blades. Improvised bombs hurled from rooftops erupted, blasting through Dominion ranks. Elias moved among them like a shadow of war. His rifle cracked, each shot dropping a soldier. His blade flashed, carving through armor joints. He barked orders, his voice keeping the chaos together, turning farmers into fighters. Lyara fought at his side, her crystal blade glowing in the smoke. She moved with fury, grief fueling every strike. Her people followed her, their fear burned into fire. The streets ran red, but the gates held. Then the Dominion unleashed their commander. A massive figure strode forward, his silver-edged armor scorched from their last clash. His spear crackled with red lightning as he roared into the fray, cutting down defenders with every swing. "Cattle," he bellowed. "You cannot stand against the Dominion." Elias met him head-on. Their clash shook the street. The commander's spear carved arcs of fire, but Elias dodged, parried, countered with brutal strikes. Sparks flew as steel and crystal clashed. The commander's strength was monstrous, but Elias fought with human grit, every move honed by decades of war. Lyara rushed to aid him, her blade slashing at the commander's flank. He roared, backhanding her aside, sending her crashing into the rubble. "Lyara!" Elias shouted, rage flooding him. The commander lunged, his spear thrusting toward Elias's chest. Elias twisted, barely deflecting it, the force throwing him to his knees. The commander raised the spear high, ready to finish him, and then a blast of blue fire erupted, slamming into the giant's side. Lyara, bloodied but unbroken, stood, with a crystal bomb in her hand, its glow fading. Her voice was hoarse but fierce. "You will not take him?" The commander staggered, armor cracked. Elias surged forward, driving his blade deep into the weak point. With a roar, he shoved it through, the tip bursting out the other side. The giant shuddered, dropped his spear, and fell, shaking the ground. For the first time, the Dominion commander was dead. The defenders roared. But victory was short-lived. Above, the warship stirred. Its cannons glowed brighter than ever, the pressure in Elias's skull nearly dropping him to his knees. The enslaved psionics within screamed through his mind like distant thunder. A new barrage fell. The ground split, towers shattered, whole, streets obliterated. The defenders were thrown back, their cheers turned to screams. The Dominion was done playing. Amid the chaos, the traitors struck. The elder who had denounced Elias led a group of Velari into the gates, carrying white banners. They shouted, voices cracking, "We surrender! Spare us!" Dropships descended to meet them. Dominion soldiers strode forward, seizing the kneeling traitors. For a moment, it seemed mercy might be given. Then the soldiers raised their rifles and fired. The traitors fell where they knelt, their bodies broken in the dust. The Dominion did not take prisoners. They took corpses. From the walls, the defenders watched in horror. The message was clear. Surrender was death. Lyra's face twisted with fury. She raised her bloodied blade high and screamed, "Do you see? Now, there is no kneeling, only fighting." Her people roared, grief turned to rage. Even in ruin, they stood. But Elias knew the truth. They could not hold much longer. Every blast from the warship tore deeper into the city. Every wave of soldiers cut their numbers. Even victory in the streets would mean nothing if the ship above remained. He turned to Liara, his face grim, his voice low. "It's time. We have the codes. We get to the ship, or this ends here." She met his gaze, eyes burning. "And we go." They gathered a small strike team, those willing to risk everything. Hunters, artisans, youths with fire in their eyes. The rest would hold the city as long as they could, buying time. Asterisk, as Elias led his fighters toward the canyon, where the captured codes would open a Dominion hangar, he looked back at the burning towers of Velara. The city that had once been a place of song was now a fortress of fire. Its people had been broken, bloodied, but not bent dot, and Elias Kane swore that their sacrifice would not be in vain. On the horizon, the Dominion warship loomed larger, its cannons blazing, its psionic scream echoing in his skull. The final gate was ahead, dot, and humanity was coming through it, dot asterisk. War at their gates. The canyon yawned wide before them, its walls blackened from Dominion landings. At its center, a hangar pulsed with alien light, guarded by towers and soldiers. Above it, the warship loomed a mountain of steel, blotting out the stars. Elias Kane crouched among the rocks, his rifle pressed to his shoulder. Liara lay beside him, blade in hand, her violet eyes locked on the hangar. Behind them, their small strike team waited, only a handful, all that remained willing to follow. Farmers, artisans, hunters. None were soldiers. Yet every face was set with grim determination. Elias tapped the glowing Dominion code module strapped to his vest. "This gets us through the door. After that," his jaw tightened, "after that, we improvise." Asterisk Liara gave a small, fierce smile. "Improvisation seems to be your specialty." Elias didn't smile back. He only nodded and rose. "Move." They struck fast. Crystal charges ripped through the first guard tower, lighting the canyon with fire. Fighters surged forward, blades flashing, rifles cracking. Dominion soldiers fell, caught off guard by the ferocity of a people they'd thought broken. Elias's rifle barked, dropping enemies one by one. Liara darted through the chaos, her blade carving arcs of light. Together, they carved a path to the hangar door. Elias slammed the code module into the console. Sparks flared, alien glyphs twisted, and the massive doors groaned open. Beyond lay the belly of the beast. The strike team poured inside. The hangar was vast, lined with rows of sleek Dominion craft. Shadows moved, soldiers rushing to intercept, but the Velari fighters threw themselves forward with fearless abandon. "Hold them!" Elias barked, dragging Liara toward a shuttle. They sprinted up the ramp, rifle fire chasing them. Inside, Elias yanked the controls, fingers moving with muscle memory from a dozen stolen cockpits in a dozen wars. The shuttle roared to life, its engines shaking the hangar. "Strap in," he shouted. Asterisk Liara slammed into a seat, gripping her blade tight. Outside, their people fought and died, holding the line. The shuttle lifted, fire erupting around it, and then it blasted upward through the hangar shields and into the waiting dark. The Dominion warship towered ahead, its hull bristling with weapons, its surface alive with patrols. Elias gunned the engines, the shuttle weaving through fire, a speck against a mountain. Asterisk. Liara's voice was steady, though her hands trembled. "How do we even breach it?" Elias's eyes narrowed. "We don't knock. We crash the party." He slammed the shuttle forward. The shuttle streaked toward a docking bay. Alarms wailed. Turrets spun, but Elias flew like a man possessed. He twisted the craft through fire, dove low, pulled hard, then rammed straight into the bay. The impact hurled them from their seats. Metal screamed. Soldiers shouted. The shuttle skidded across the deck in a storm of sparks before slamming to a stop. Elias ripped the hatch open, rifle blazing. Liara leapt out beside him, blade flashing. Together, they stormed into the dominions. Heart, the corridors were a nightmare of steel and shadow. Sirens wailed, boots thundered, soldiers poured in from every side. But Elias and Liara pushed forward, carving a bloody path. Every corner brought fresh resistance, every step bought. With fire and blood, Lyra's people fell one by one, cut down by the relentless tide. But not before taking enemies with them, their cries echoing through the steel halls dotted last. Elias slammed a Dominion soldier against the wall, pressing a blade to his throat. "Where's the psionic core?" He growled. The soldier spat blood. "You'll never reach it." Elias pressed harder. "Where?" The soldier's eyes flicked upward. "Central chamber. Nexus." Elias dropped him, turning to Liara. "That's where we go." The deeper they went, the heavier the pressure in. Elias's skull grew. It was like walking through a storm of invisible knives. His vision blurred, his ears rang. He could hear them, now the voices. Faint, broken, crying out in agony. The enslaved. They reached the central chamber, and the sight froze even Elias in his tracks. Rows of figures were suspended in glass-like. Pods, their bodies frail, their eyes glowing with unnatural light. Wires pierced their flesh, feeding into the walls. Their mouths moved in silent screams, their minds forced open, their power siphoned into the ship itself. The Dominion's heart was not a reactor. It was people. Lyra's hand shook. By the suns. Elias's face hardened. He had seen many horrors in war, but never one this obscene. "We end this." A roar shook the chamber. The Dominion admiral descended from the shadows, draped in. Black and silver, his eyes glowing with psionic fire. He was tall, armored, his presence crushing. "You dare set foot in my vessel?" His voice boomed with fury and scorn. "Insects, animals, you will be broken like the rest." He raised a hand, and the air itself slammed Elias to his knees. Invisible force crushed his chest. Blood filled his mouth. Liara screamed, hurled across the floor. The Admiral's power was overwhelming, a storm of psionic wrath drawn from the enslaved. He strode forward, spear in hand, his shadow swallowing them. "You thought to defy the Dominion?" His voice dripped contempt. "You are nothing." Elias coughed blood, forcing himself to his feet. His body shook, his mind screamed, but he stood. He raised his rifle, eyes burning. "No," he rasped, "I'm human." And he fired. The blast struck the Admiral, staggering him. Liara surged forward, blade slashing, sparks flying. The fight exploded, steel and fire against psionic fury. The Admiral hurled them back with waves of force, slammed them into walls, crushed their weapons with thought alone. But Elias and Liara kept rising, kept striking, kept fighting. Every time. They fell, they stood again. The Admiral sneered. Pathetic. Elias's eyes flicked to the pods, to the enslaved psionics screaming silently. He realized the truth. The Admiral's power wasn't infinite, it was stolen. If the link was severed, "Liara," he shouted. "The pods," she understood instantly. She darted toward the control nexus, blade flashing. The Admiral roared, hurling her back, but Elias charged, tackling him with all the strength left in his broken body. They crashed to the floor, struggling, fists and blades clashing. "No!" Elias bellowed. Liara slammed her blade into the console. Sparks erupted. Glass shattered, and the pods began to fail. One by one, the enslaved collapsed, their chains breaking. Their cries turned from agony to fury. The Admiral screamed, his psionic power flickering, failing. Elias surged up, driving his blade deep into the alien's chest. With a final roar, he shoved it through, straight into the wall behind. The Admiral, convulsed, his power shattering in a shockwave that ripped through the chamber. The pods exploded, freeing the enslaved. The walls cracked. The ship itself screamed, and then silence-smoke filled the chamber. Sparks rained down. The enslaved lay unconscious but free, their chains shattered. The Admiral's body lay broken, his armor cracked, his fire gone. Elias staggered, barely standing, blood running from his mouth. Liara caught him, her eyes wide, tears streaking her face. "You did it," she whispered. Elias shook his head weakly. "We did it." The ship groaned. Explosions thundered. Without its core, the warship was dying. Time to go. Elias rasped Dot together. They dragged themselves through the burning corridors, carrying the freed psionics they could. Fires roared, steel split, the ship tearing itself apart. They reached a shuttle bay, leaping aboard as the deck split beneath them. Elias slammed the controls, and the shuttle burst from the dying ship just as it erupted in a storm of fire. A sun blooming above Velara. The Dominion warship was gone. On the ground, the defenders looked up and saw the impossible. The Empire's spearhead, its symbol of terror, burning in the sky. The Dominion fleet shuddered. Their reinforcements pulled back, their resolve shaken. For the first time in living memory, the Empire had been struck at its heart by humans in the ruins of Velara. The survivors gathered. Liara stood before them, her blade raised, her voice carrying across the ashes. "The Dominion expected us to kneel," she declared. "But we fought, we bled, we endured. And with Elias Kane, human of Earth, we brought war to their gates. Let them remember this day, for the Empire is not eternal. It bleeds, and we will make it bleed again." The people roared their voices. Shaking the sky, Elias stood among them, silent, weary, broken but alive. He had found something worth fighting for again, and somewhere deep inside, he knew this was only the beginning, because humanity was coming. Asterisk.